This afternoon, Books and Books is very happy to welcome back Ms. Jane Allison, presenting her new book, Nine Island. And here to introduce Jane, we have a special guest. He is the former book critic for the Sun Sentinel and a great friend of Books and Books. Please welcome to the podium Mr. Chauncey Mabe.
Thank you, Victor. It's always an honor to be participating in any event at Books and Books, one of the 10 greatest bookstores in America, I believe. And it's a pleasure, it would be a pleasure in any case, to welcome Jane Allison back to Florida for a visit, however brief. You all probably know that she spent several years here as a creative writing professor at the University of Miami. But it's a special pleasure because not so long ago, I had the pleasure of reading her new novel, Nine Island, and I liked it. In fact, I liked it so much that I talked about it and talked about it and talked about it until my wife, who's also a writer, said, "Shut up, it's a good book already. Tired of hearing about it." But it's a magical book, not a twinkly magical book in that it makes you feel, all warm inside. But it's magical in the way that it does what it does, because it seems to be a simple narrative, but underneath there are all these things happening. And I know we're celebrating banned books. This has not been banned. The only reason this book has not been banned is because the men in the world do not realize what this book has to say about the way that women are treated by men. It's just a wonderful book. It's sad, even bitter, but it's also funny and smart, and I couldn't stop reading it. And it's uplifting, and it's just a miracle that a book about a woman in having a midlife crisis could be so uplifting. And what's uplifting about it for me, apart from the technical prowess, the technical achievement, is that the central character, the point of view character, is aware. She's self-aware. She knows that she does the things that get her into trouble. She knows why she does them. And as a result, there's no irony in this book. And she's the most reliable of narrators. The humor does not come from her not knowing what she's doing, but from her knowing absolutely what she's doing and why she's doing it. And it's just a fantastic achievement. And it's my pleasure to welcome Jane Allison back to Miami.
Hello, thank you, Chauncey. That was lovely. I'm really happy to be back here. I'm embarrassed that being the biggest cliche in the world and coming back from the so-called North with a cold, but that's what I managed to do. But it's a pleasure to be back here and see so many old friends and colleagues, to say nothing of the good old trees and streets that I have missed up in Virginia, which actually is hotter than here. So I'm going to read, it's a book that's written in very small pieces, so it has a kind of fragmented feel, and I'm going to read several sections from it, starting with the beginning and then jumping around a little bit. So, I've sailed the seas and come to... No, I've sailed no seas. I've driven south down I-95, driven south for days, till 95 stopped, and I was back in Miami, which is no country for old women. I'm not old yet, but my heart is sick with old desire, and I'm back in this place of sensual music to see if it's time to retire from love. What a delight to be free of that maddening monster, lust. So Plato says, Sophocles said, could be. I had just spent a month with you, Sir Gold, up where 95 starts. After 30 years since I'd seen you last, 30 years of disaster with men, one day you dropped from the sky to my inbox. Your name there I looked at a very long time. Ahoy, you finally said when I clicked. First we had a year-long exchange of pictures and words. Then I flew up for a week of ceviche, strolls through hydrangeas, Greek pots. Then you asked me to come again and stay a while in your stone house on a hill. These words I looked at a long time, too. Bring Ovid, you said. Bring the cat. Are you here yet, you said, when I just started driving. You smoked me a trout, yanked armfuls of greens out of your ground, made me a tarte tatin. You even filled your swimming pool just so I could swim. Gazing down at the naked older me, you murmured, "Look at that." Later you said, "Isn't this funny after so many years?" And in the morning, happy whistling as you strode over wet grass with the dog, then bounded back to me still in bed. I thought, could it be? Happy end? But when the month was done, well, who knows? Your hazel green eyes went pained, and you decided it best to stay as you were. Just the dog, the stone house, the hill. Thanks for coming up, though. I ramped onto 95 South thinking, really ought to give up on all this. Sobs shook my Mini, rock songs blasting to heighten the pain for 7 high-speed hours. But give up on what exactly, I have to ask myself. Has it not been decades of comical disaster? It should be good to give up on disaster. I stopped near Annapolis to see my mother. Now, she is a lady who sailed the seas of love all the way from Australia. She's had a long career in men, trailing me along through husbands, then boyfriends, then the species of men who vanished by daybreak, until finally the seas dried up and she landed alone. She knows all about my wandering, erring, as she calls it. "You too," she said to me once. "Oh, my darling dear." When I parked outside her house, she came to the door and wavered, silky as ash. She wobbles and lists even sitting. Loss of labyrinthine function, doctors say, a phrase that has bewitched us. She insists it isn't dizziness. The horizon just started tilting one day and she can't get it to stop. I came in and watched her lurch and careen from wall to fridge, then tumble into a chair surrounded by her carved and painted birds, clutching the table for safety. "Look at you," I said to her. "This has got to end. You need a plan. Do you hear me? A plan for where to live next. It's time." She tossed her head and glanced away. "Let's not talk about me," she said. "Let's talk about you, bossy girl. How'd it go?" Meaning the month. She'd heard about Sir Gold 3 decades ago when he first broke my heart. Then much, much more about him this year when it all seemed so hopeful again. I shook my head. She pondered me. After a moment, she sighed. "Well," she said, placing her spotted hand on mine, well, maybe, darling, you should give up on all that. Maybe it's just time." Got back in the car and drove blurrily south. Last chance lost. Odyssey done. From Annapolis down around D.C., through Virginia, North Carolina south, trees changed from oaks to loblollies to palmettos among pines as the sun freckled my hands and mottled my chest. Buster was with me. Have I said that? Buster, my darling, the only real one. Skinny and black with a white spot on his nose, almost entirely blind and deaf, paws flailing for knowledge. 3 decades of wandering among men, I have to ask myself, for what? Who made them, the trees, the stars? Boys at 7 running after you and knocking you down, sticky lips all over your face. Boys in alleys, on sand dunes, in cars. Boys on tables, on stairs, in closets. Skinny blonde painter with fish eyes I lived with a while. Tall architect with an eclipse in one eye and long hands that shook. The one I married and stayed with for years. Then the wretched end of that, and it was back to the start. A heat-seeking tour of old boyfriends. Who knew? Might be something I'd missed. I wrote to old boyfriends from decades before, college, high school, one from 5th grade, the kind that really know you and send messages back that fill you with hope. Have thought about you often, would love to see you come. The tour took me up and down I-95, involved lots of nervous drinking and ruinous sex, but one old boyfriend after another in flesh was not what he'd been in ether, and not at all what he'd been before. First was Lurch, then Mick, Sad Eyes, the Devil, but they turned out even more errant than me. Girlfriends or wives kept secret in pockets, vessels broken on once noble noses gazing into their glasses of gin. And this was when Sir Gold appeared, drifting back into my life like a cloud. Pine forests, pine barrens, swamps. In Georgia, I stopped at a hotel with walls made of oyster shells jammed in concrete, and in its saloon I ate shrimp and grits and drank too much wine for a woman alone, helplessly checking for messages. Someone, you, saying, "Come back." Such a sickness wanting, no end. After the hotel of shells came the zone of orange groves. I'm skipping the miles of spattered asphalt, turtles pondering on the side of the road, gas stations, waffle houses, outlets for cigarettes or perfume, trucks with no qualms about blasting my Mini to the shoulder. But we recover fast and mad, no trouble getting in their way again and making them lose time. Once we were in Florida, I gazed into the orange groves. Groves to the east, groves to the west, slanting corridors of citrus, the sun biblical as it set beyond them, an almighty crown of light. Then 95 ended, and I was back in Miami, where I'd moved 2 years ago, fresh from marriage and shaky, true, but full of hope and vim. Such vim. Live in paradise, the ad had said. I'd looked up at all the glass shining high in the sky, enormous white clouds pulsing. Energy in that upper air. Ions spun through deepening blue, singing, live the life. But below that sky of dancing ions, up and down Route 1, billboards for breast augmentation. A clue. So I wrote this, when I started to write this, it was 4 years ago when I was still living here and about to move up to Virginia. And I got into a point in writing where I couldn't stand writing regular old fiction anymore, whatever that is, but the illusion of a certain kind of invented reality. I had done a memoir and 3 novels, and I had translated Ovid's poems of sexual transformation. And I think I was sort of lurching my way toward writing something that somehow partook of all of those. So something that had some kind of real truth in it, but the inventiveness that you can have in fiction, and some thing that might sound a little like poetry now and then. So a new genre, I don't know. So the narrator is back in Miami, as you know, and she's now going to be translating Ovid while she takes care of her cat, who is now in diapers, and a duck she finds on the side of the road who was wounded, and her mother long distance on the phone who really needs to move. For fun, she swims and walks the Venetian. But this is the first night back. Out on my balcony on the 21st floor, a wine glass sweats between my legs, my fingertips filming the keyboard. Miami Beach glitters and roars over the bay, beyond it vast black sea. Am sipping and pondering this life to be lived, while inside Buster navigates the floor. He's grown more blind in the month we were gone. He leans a skinny black shoulder against a wall and creeps forward until a chair or table stops him, then wavers with opaque eyes until deciding to push onward. His little black body creeps over the cork floor, beneath maps of water cities and islands, beneath shelves of books about color and plants, beneath my desk stacked high with Ovid. Boats glint down in the bay, their lights and the light's liquid ghosts. Across the way at Costa Brava, the next big condo on Island Avenue, a man has just stepped out to a balcony, and he appears to be naked. Can't quite see. Balcony rail's in the way, but I think I see the tender flesh channel at the hip, the one it can be so nice to run a tongue along at times, on one's way to delectable firmness. Swallow a mouthful of wine and ponder. Is it really time to retire from love? Ovid does not like women who drink too much. Trying not to do that. But tell me, should I stay or should I go? My friend Kay from South Carolina, with fiery blonde hair and furious thumbs and the fastest mouth I've ever heard, types me her opinion. You are not ready to retire, damn it. Put on that bikini. I don't care how old you are, and go out and live that life. The morning air of paradise rolls in molten waves over your skin when you slide open the balcony door and dip out a hand. Glass and tiles so hot they hurt. Inside, Buster has puddled the floor. Hard to see puddles on the swirling patterns of cork, and I skidded in 2 before coffee. Wipe them up with yellow gloves, wondering what to do next. Ignore problem and put on bikini, that's what. Not a minute to spare to go out and start living the etc. So out my door I went in old polka dot bikini, carrying towel and books. This building is old. Not old, but Miami old, circa 1980. I knew it when I rented the place 2 years ago, but see it harshly now. The building's public areas are full of heavy woodwork, mirrors, brass sconces fixed crooked to the walls, and along the curving hallways whose floors aren't level. Is that true? Building sinking into sand or what? Lies worn carpet with dull vegetal patterns that maybe once were green and orange, but now are beige and done. Door after door, brass sconce after crooked brass sconce, 3 of them flickering out. A smell. In the elevator are mirrors with cut glass flamingos, and as the doors slid open today, a little pink man named Lino. In a white linen suit, strands of white hair beneath a white hat, he looked like a lascivious elderly elf. "Hello," he said as I stepped in. "Do you live here?" "I certainly do," I said, as I say each time he asks. He eyed me. "You don't look like you do." "Yet I do, for now." "Ha," he said, "we're all just here for now. But anyway, if you live here, you better make sure your husband's a lawyer. Is your husband a lawyer?" Said no. Asked why. "Because the board's a bunch of crooks," he said. "All those guys, they're going to ruin us. The pool," he said, "they say it needs to be demolished. The whole thing replaced. The pool and koi ponds and garden and parking garage beneath it, the whole shebang. And you know why? because they're all in the concrete business. They're crooks. Boy, do they stand to make out big on us. Special assessments up the wazoo. So you better make sure your husband's a lawyer. I'll try, I said. Okay, this is me. The doors opened. He tipped his hat. I stepped out. Was this true? Good God, no way could I afford it. My landlord would for sure pass it straight on to me. On the mezzanine is the restaurant offering early bird specials. Also the gym, where the bikes and running machines all rest. Plus the card room, empty. No one up or down the long hall, just mirrors showing me, alarmed. I've been here 2 years and only now see it is a cruise ship. Empty old love boat. Once all the pairs have walked the plank and gone on. Wait, I'm still here, wait. But out back is the paradise jungle, deep, cool, tropical shade. A pink concrete path winds past koi streams, through a jungle of fans and spines and huge shapely leaves, and at the end of the greenery, a blue pool like an hourglass, still and clear, not a ripple, no stir, an hourglass full of sky. There was once a limpid pool, whispered Ovid, and I broke into a panicked run. Towels and books dumped on a lounge chair, dress shrugged off, crash in. Floating in the hourglass pool, its slender waist, voluptuous volumes of blue. Touch a woman where she most likes, says Ovid. Touch her just right in her tiny pond, and you will see her eyes glow. I opened my legs to the water and winged out my arms, shutting eyes so only they knew if they glowed. 20 laps later, I clung gasping to the concrete lip, the building's 9 o'clock shadow cloaking the pool. 24 floors, I counted. I count things, even when I already know. 24 stories times 7 balconies. It's good to do math when you can, keeps the brain sharp. All those balconies and potential eyes looking over this pool, jungle, and bay to Miami, but no one on any of them, no one in the lounge chairs surrounding the pool. Alone, alone, all alone, alone on a wide. No. Jorge was hosing philodendra in his rubber boots and white hat. I slung a wet wave his way. He waved back. A green heron on a branch above the koi pond stared into the water. And just then, someone appeared on a high balcony. That incredibly thin woman with white blonde hair. I could see how skinny she was from all those stories below. She looked out at the bay, then straight down to the ground. She stepped from view, came back to the rail, then reached out her arm, paused, and let something drop. She leaned out to watch it fall. After a minute, I couldn't stand it and hurried barefoot along the cracked path between the gym windows and the low concrete rim that holds back the paradise jungle to where it must have fallen. Poked at the leaves. Nothing. I looked up at the building, up the thing's path, and there she was, all those stories above, looking down at me. We gazed up and down at each other like I was her reflection or shadow. Actually, that white blonde woman is a key. Part of the code, the economics of love. That skinny woman and her man, I've looked at them a lot this past year. Out by the pool, he reads the paper, he never looks up, he rests ankle on knee and reads. His hand reaches for a drink, but his eyes don't leave the page. His flesh is smooth and tanned and full. Pinguous is the Latin word, health glowing through his skin. As the sun rolls over, his shoulders shine, his golden gray hair gleams. Supreme self-possession is what I see. But beside him, she agitates. In her skinny skin, those thin bones, those large liquid eyes running in her drawn face. She lies down, sits up, looks around, twists, stands, paces with big hands locked behind her back, looks over the bay, turns to stare at the building, the pool, the man she married, who all the while sits absorbed in his paper. She's half his size, tanned bones. A woman who wants, a man who wants nothing. These two have stalked the world for thousands of years. Peña and Poros, Echo and Narcissus. Another female like that is an Ovid monster named Hunger. 100% ravenousness. Hunger whistles and whirls into your room at night, crouches on your chest, glues her nasty mouth to yours, and breathes her neediness into you. From then on, you are full of want. And wanting is exactly what I've never wanted. One version of the birth of erotic love. Peña, who's female, whose name means want. Raped, Poros, who is male, whose name means want nothing. Because she wanted what he was. The child Peña bore, the child of want and want nothing. Eros, a.k.a. love. You can spend some time pondering the logic and logistics of this. So, should I stay or should I go? Just what is meant by I anyway. Look at it. Skinny little skeletal stalks, so simple and neat, coming not even close to conveying the runny, yolky mess it stands for. Let's be decisive and say go. Yes, it will be tonic, throwing away want all at once, closing the door and saying, I'm done. Sono chiuso, as an Italian lady once said, pushing away her plate. I'm shut. What a relief. Seal the leaky jar. And remember, it was always difficult from the start. From the start, you did not want to be touched. Remember? Splendid isolation. You wanted to be marble, slate, glass, chrome, anything but flesh. Until you saw Sir Gold that day, split open evermore. So our narrator is going to continue translating her Ovid, taking care of the cat, the duck, the mother, swimming, walking the Venetian, and puzzling out the problem, because it is a problem of erotic love. She's thinking about, wanting, not wanting, wanting to not wanting to want. She's trying to sort it out. She's trying, above all, to figure out, is it really so wrong? I mean, why can't we all just be single-celled creatures? Like, what is the deal? Why do you have to have a partner? But of course, she realizes she wants something. She's missing something. So it's a problem, like this refusal to take part in this economic problem. And yet there she is, taking part in it. So she goes through various changes in her mind on where she stands on this issue as she does her Latin every day. And at a certain point, she begins to panic. It seems that she's sort of sliding into the retired community of her building, which she really doesn't think she's ready to do yet. And so she thinks, I'm going to make an effort. And the effort appears first in the form of one of the terrible old boyfriends, the one she calls the devil, letting her know that he's going to be coming to town soon because he's working on a deal with the heat. Her friend Kay says, no, get rid of that message. Do not respond to that. But she's going to do what she's going to do because she's going to make mistakes. It's what she wants to do. So I'm going to skip ahead now to that incident. And in order to get herself ready, she's going to get highlights. Right? A little waxing. But two things that get referred to in these later pages. One is the light girl. I don't know if she still exists. Like 4 years ago, across the bay from this building, Belle Isle, this enormous LED girl who dances appeared on the building. Is she still there? She's still dancing? She's still tossing her hair and she's got her boots? Okay, she's great. So, all right, so she's there. All right. And then another thing the narrator refers to is the girl trees. So these are the gumbo limbos that to her look as though they're young girls who were running away from something and dove into the ground. And they've got these sort of long, lissom, slender torso and these two legs up here. And that's just how she sees them, as the girl trees. I was sitting in a salon on the beach with tinsel all over my head when a white BMW pulled up right outside the glass doors. A young woman swung in with tight jeans and high shoes and lively breasts and gold jingling from her ears and wrists, and she swept through the salon until she found the person she wanted, a woman having a keratin treatment, and got the keys or money she needed and swirled out again, leaving our chairs spinning. What was that? I asked Richard, foil and paintbrush in his hands. Oh, her, he said. She's nasty. I mean, she's gorgeous, but she's mean. She's one of the girls who does the boats. The what? You know, he said, you hire them to be on your boat in a bikini and what all. You've seen them on the front of those yachts. Just be on the boat, like an ornament? Or maybe more, he said and shrugged. Cross between figurehead and hooker? He didn't answer, but after a moment said, there was another girl like her who used to come in all the time, and come to think of it, just 3 weeks ago she was sitting right where you are now, and he looked at me in the mirror, his face very sunned and creased. She was getting her hair unruined, he said. She'd done so much awful stuff to it, I had to strip everything away and get right back to nothing, and then, anyway, she was here getting done for a show that night. She didn't actually do the boats. She was a dancer or something at one of the clubs, but the same type as that one just now, and she left here gorgeous, although she was not a very nice person, I have to say. But the next morning, she was found in a dumpster. What? Maybe you saw the story. No. Burned up in a dumpster. We were silent as he wrapped strands of hair in foil. I looked at him in the mirror, smelled hot hair. Burned? I said. Someone threw her in and lit it, or maybe killed her first, not sure. I guess she made her boyfriend or whatever man mad, and he was one of those types. I forget the details. I think she was Russian, maybe Ukrainian. Who knows? Maybe he didn't even know her. Sirens screamed everywhere on the way home. Trucks raging red over Alton and Dade. Smoke tumbled into the sky. See the following in blurred light, please, and please play it fast. Devil takes a cab from the airport, sending curt message with thumbs as he rides. Devil gets in the building, gets in the door, has long arms and legs spidering around me at once, trips me down on the bed. Mirrored walls watch. All this in blue light. Drinks are drunk on the balcony, smoke sent in rings from his jaws to the sky. Cab is taken beachward, scotch drunk by Devil, sunny magenta Camparis by me. Devil rarely meets my eyes, although when I catch his shady violet ones, they are always looking and glance away fast. Punish him by making him come in by the dumpsters. Ovid would not like what he saw, or at least what I remember, because this is what I do with the devil, make sure I won't remember. Bottles on the floor, twisted cloth, smoke. Devil departs early as he talks on the phone, flush with the deal he struck with the heat. Striding past the girl trees by the chlorine fountain, he flicks a cigarette at their bark. I might not have mentioned that my walls are mirrors. The apartment came that way, showing you your bleak face no matter which way you turn. Buster noses along the cold glass. Patches of quicksilver are scratched away black. Also might not have mentioned the clock in the sky, beyond Costa Brava and the Venetian, way over on the beach, above the distant horizon of sea, a huge square of digital time. Huge dancing light girl west of the bay, and her mate, the huge clock to the east. Beside the numbers, smoke keeps rising into the sky, a slow gray slanting tower. Arson, maybe. Maybe a girl. Well, that's what you get, wrote Kay. Doesn't mean you're ready to quit. That you even let him in is proof. Put on something nice and go sit in a bar and have a cocktail so someone new with a pulse and a car will look at you, damn it, and remind you you're alive. Couldn't stand the apartment or Latin or poor Buster's howling anymore, so went out. Walked not along the Venetian, but east. As I crossed over the bridge, a yacht passed, beat booming around it. In the cabin, 3 men with drinks shouted over the music. On the prow lay 2 girls in bikinis. Both leaned on their elbows, toes pointed towards sea, long hair flitting, long legs bare, bare hips. A posse of jet skiers roared by, muscle men in life jackets, engines roiling the surf. They whooped at the girls, bellowed pleasure and lust. The 2 sets of men, those on board and those on water, regarded each other, regarded the girls. Then all the men grinned and raised their glasses or fists to toast such splendid possessions. The boat sped into a red ray of sun, and the girls on the prow, they flamed. Walked north, away from the lounge chairs and plastic bottles jammed in the sand. Walked north by 30 blocks. On the boardwalk, German family, 2 Latin ladies talking fast, skinny man selling crickets made of woven palm frond. Music thumped from hotels. But the farther north you walk, the quieter it grows, until the boardwalk ends and wooden steps take you to cool, pale sand. A photo shoot. A guy was darting and pointing and shooting a young woman wearing only a thong. She rolled in the sand, rose to hands and knees, swung her hair and bare breasts and roared, then swiveled onto her back and scissored the sky. Just a string of cloth between her tender inner world and everything else, broken bottles and jets and dumpsters. Another woman danced behind the photographer and around him, finally pulled up her shirt, pulled it off, and flung herself on top of the other as her own legs cut the sky. 3 men had settled in solo spots 50 paces away to watch. 2 had their hands in their shorts. 5 blocks north lay something large at the water's edge. From far away, beached dolphin? No, human, but not clear if male or female or what. It twisted, it wriggled. From the waist down, in frills of surf, swished back and forth a fishtail. Above the tail, a naked belly and thin, bare breasts, head flung back, eyes shut, red hair sweeping the sand. No camera to be seen. She stroked her belly with a ringed hand and looked so alone and private, I wasn't sure whether to walk in the water and pass at her tail or walk behind her head. She didn't care. She swished her sequined tail in the froth, dragged her long red hair in the sand, held both breasts as she writhed, mascaraed eyes shut, tight. Someone is living on this beach, wrote my heel in the sand to the sky. Thank you. I would be happy to take any questions or comments, should you
Folks,
have any.
if there are comments or questions, please raise your hand and let me get to you with the microphone so that the internet audience can hear your questions. Here we go. Let me turn this down a little.
Jane, were you even a teeny tiny bit tempted to make your protagonist a professor at the University of Miami?
No, I was not even a teeny tiny bit tempted. I felt she had to be more unstable than that. I felt she should have less income.
More is a pity.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
A couple
Oh,
of
come on.
people have
Here you
asked
go.
me about the fact that this is a woman of middle age. She's about 50-ish. I'm older now than she was then. And and said, why are there so few books about this? And I'm thinking, I'm reading a lot of books about this. It seems to me that a lot of people are writing this kind of thing. And I think of someone like Dorothy Norris, who's a little bit younger, or her characters are, but she writes about comparable things. So Much for That Winter is a book I recently read that I just loved by her. Mary Robeson, and Why Did I Ever is another example. I mean, Mary Gordon has done this, and Claire Massoud has done this, and there isn't really a shortage of it, but you might need to be reading in the right place to get sort of older women on the problem of desire and its problems.
So thank you for that, Jane. That was lovely. I wanted to ask you, having done fiction and then having done memoir, and this sort of occupying some perhaps slightly different territory, could you say more about the genre and then how the process of writing it might have been different or similar to the other two modes?
Yes, thank you, Brenna. So I had never written in the first person when I wrote fiction. I read three novels, and I never used the first person and was not comfortable. And then when I wrote a memoir, I mean, it was going to be first person, and not only first person, but true. So it was pretty shocking to get used to that. But then I just found myself wanting to do something that was, again, pretty true, to use a weak word. But the incidents in this are, I would say, 90% true. I mean, down to that mermaid on the beach. I did see this mermaid on the beach. But the larger incidents involving the mother and involving the woman she befriends in the building and the duck and the cat and so on. I compressed 2 summers of activities and then added a few things from earlier. But I found in writing memoir, it's kind of like in translation, you're trying to find the secret connection between things that aren't clear. And so in translation, it's, these words in Latin, and there's so many possible meanings, and you need to find the one that's going to have that many possibilities. And in memoir, it's these incidents in life, and you're trying to arrange them or choose them in such a way that you are creating something with larger meaning than just for your own self. So that idea of working with found material rather than inventing a lot of material, it seemed like a truer way to write at that point when I was working on this. Not that there isn't invention and made up stuff. The character dropping something off her balcony is made up for a reason. I needed something like that to happen. But I was otherwise really trying to kind of put together, what it is like when you're at this age and you're thinking about these things and your mother's body is failing her, and then you're taking care of this hopeless duck that won't fly, and you clearly you clearly are not flying yourself, and you're also trapped in this funny way, and there's the cat. I wanted to kind of find a way to put together all these things that were happening at the same time a few years ago, and then turn them into a narrative that had some body and form, and hopefully opened up to other people as well.
Thank you very much, Jane. I have a question about using Ovid in a narrative that's from a female point of view, using Ovid clearly as a counterpart to your point of view, and just your comments on the gender aspect of that interaction for you.
Okay. Ovid, I've been in love with since I was 19, and the love never grew. It never matured. It stayed the same exact love as when I first met him at 19, when I first read his stories and Metamorphoses and the Amores and the Ars Amatoria. So he's been a voice in my head as the part I didn't read that I skipped over was that he's been my guide through the land of love from the start. He's the one who gave the information. He says, "I will tell you strange stories to help you see." and tells stories about Echo and Narcissus, where Narcissus is this boy who has everything and needs nothing, and here's this girl Echo who's this clamoring, empty thing that just wants him. And when I was 19, I had an incident. I mean, I had a relation I was sure was just like that, but Ovid turned it into art, and it became not just some petty college thing. It became something that had history and beauty. So Ovid, in terms of being gendered, I suppose I don't even think about that much, except that he is the voice and the artificer who helped me understand things from an early age. But it's also true that when I was first drafting this, and I didn't know what it was going to be about yet, I knew that I had a narrator who seemed to be obsessed with old men, gone men, dead men. Whatever man was not the one that was actually there and viable. And Ovid was sort of the king of them all because, 2,000 years gone. So that was a starting point, was this kind of, this is a great love, and can it qualify as a love when you love what another mind made? In the case of Ovid, these poems that will stay with you for 30, 40 years. So he was gendered in that way, I suppose, as a love object and guiding voice. And I'm not going to ever write about Ovid again. I've done. Well, this is it. This is the third one, and that's it. That's done.
Jane, I have a question actually along the line of your last comment right there, which is, how did you feel about writing about Miami? Did you like it, or did you feel like you were just, given the nature of what you wanted to do, stuck with writing about Miami?
I really liked it. It was fun. It was actually, I began to work on it hard when I had gotten the job. I now teach at the University of Virginia. When I'd gotten that job and I was packing up my house and my apartment and was ready to go, and I was working on these translations of Ovid because I had a deadline, and then I thought, are you crazy? You've got a month left. You have to start taking notes on everything. So I just did this thorough immersion of just like sitting down on my balcony, transcribing everything I heard, everything I saw, going on walks, like recording everything. And it was really fun. I felt like I was doing a real kind of reporter's writing. And it felt great. There was so much, and it's so stimulating. And I knew it would fade and go, and I wouldn't have it anymore. So this is probably a terrible thing to say, but I've had this cold since I got here, so I have not taken any advantage of Miami today. I've been in my hotel room. I feel like a loser. But then I thought, I've taken advantage of it already. Here it is. So I have sort of absorbed a lot of what I could from it.
Question over here.
You have such a wonderful style, and since this is sort of an interesting subject for a lot of us our age, are you going to do any more stories on this sort of thing, or was this a one-time thing?
Who knows? I don't know. I have another project that is not related to this. But one thing I have been doing is I'm putting together reading lists and things like that, because I'm suddenly realizing it didn't occur to me that anyone would think no one is writing, or not enough people are writing about women of this age and their desire status. But now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm going to start writing essays, I think, about what there is, and there are a lot of stories out there. And ideally the ones that are really literary are going to be the ones I'm most interested in. But in terms of a next project, you just wait and see, and then something happens to you and you think, oh, here we go, new project.
Who else has a question? All right. 1 second.
Thanks, Jane. I wanted to ask about the process of shaping these wonderful sentences, and whether Latin has any kind of shaping influence, because there's a lot of ellipses and a lot of implicit pronouns that are not actually on the page.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
going to be the answer. No, I got rid of the pronouns because, actually this goes back to Brenna's question, because I was really uncomfortable writing in the first person, and yet this had to be in the first person. And I thought, well, what's a way to write in the first person without doing it quite so much? And so I thought, well, I'll just get rid of the pronouns. And it did turn into something kind of like diary writing, where you do not say I. I mean, you shouldn't keep saying I. You know who the subject is. But I think now that you've given me that idea, I think I'll add Latin to the further explanations. Because, yeah, there are no pronouns. It's one of the great things about Latin, no pronouns, unlike Greek. But I don't know about the shaping of them. I mean, I think, Ovid's sentences and lines are so beautifully composed, and they're so puzzled, or they're so, there's these parallels and these symmetries and this just fantastic, well, I won't go on and on about Latin, but I suppose since I was writing this while translating him, there was some seepage, no doubt, I'd like to say.
Who else has a comment or question for Jane? Here we go.
I have no idea. What I read was what I saw. That was it. There was this creature, trans maybe, I'm not sure, but definitely transing into mermaidhood. And it was sequin, I mean, but I don't know. I really thought, is there a camera? There is no camera. It was a person, and I think the person was weeping. I mean, it was a kind of dramatic, disturbing thing, but I was drawn to this figure. I mean, who wouldn't be? But I wanted to include her, him, this mermaid, because of the idea of being so freakish and so lost and in between elements. And that's one of the things that the narrator is thinking about a lot. I mean, when she's studying Ovid, and there are these people who are transforming from something into it, from a girl into a tree, or a girl into a stream, or a boy into a pool, or whatever. I was really interested in these just the in-betweenness of our states, and the Ovid focuses on the younger part of aging, when you first become a sexual person, or realize that you're a sexual person, and you flee it or you don't flee it. But I was interested in the same thing happening older. So older women who are having the same kind of bodily changes. And so, looking at my mother, who was losing her balance, was losing her ability to walk, was going to be part metal soon because she's going to be in a wheelchair. It just seemed like a later stage of the same kind of transformation. And this mermaid seemed to capture someone right there, in it, in a real Miami way, and a mythical way, but also genuinely a person who is in between her elements. I was trying to work with, this is a writer talking about her own pet part of the book, the Hourglass Pool that the narrator is swimming in. I mean, the pool at this apartment building is an hourglass shape, but I felt that it was a natural place to be writing about because she is there swimming every morning, and it's a wonderful pool, and why not? But everyone around, most of the people around are quite old, and so it's a good place to think about age in your own body. But then I was thinking about hourglass, and obviously the relations to a woman's form in some idealized way, but also time. And so I was sort of using the hourglass figure as a way to sort of read a woman's body on a kind of, on a line with respect to time and age. What is it like to be floating in the hourglass pool? That's a long answer, going back to the mermaid.
Anyone else today? All right, well, if there are no last questions, then a note to our internet audience watching at home that there's still plenty of time for you to call the number on your screen, and you can get a copy of Nine Island shipped to wherever you are in the U.S. free of charge. For those of you here in the house, we have Nine Island as well as Jane's previous books for sale at the counter in the front room over there. She's going to be signing here at the table to the left of the podium. So I want to thank our friend Chauncey Mabe for the glowing introduction today. And this was a really lovely reading. Please give another hand to Jane Alison. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.